Not responding fast enough is one of the biggest yet easiest to fix mistakes that I see in business. If you take a look at the numbers, if you respond within 5 minutes of somebody reaching out to your business, you can increase your odds of conversion by almost 400%. Now that's no small number, and when you think about things this way, it's kind of hard to imagine that more people aren't realizing this. And if that weren't enough, about 50% of people choose to do business with the first person that follows up. And as convincing of a case all of these numbers build, it still raises the question of what do we actually do about this? So in an effort to address this problem, I built an AI agent that answers every inbound call that you get and qualifies every single prospect that comes into your company. And whenever a potential lead comes in and shows interest, this agent automatically greets them, takes them through a set of questions, and qualifies them. And now this agent isn't actually designed to cultivate relationships for you. This agent is meant to address that superficial issue of not being able to follow up fast enough. And regardless of what industry you're in, you could definitely benefit from having an AI agent that lets 0% of your leads slip through the cracks. And for this particular case, I'll be using a real estate example just to make things easy to illustrate, but you can of course adapt this to any field that you're interested in. Hi, I wanted to call your agency because a friend of mine referred me to you guys, and I'm actually looking to buy a new home.
Great to hear. We'd be happy to help you find a new home. Before we get into the details, could I ask your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Mike.
Great, I've noted that, Mike. Now, could I ask, what's your budget for this home?
Sure, my budget is around 1.8 million, but I'm a bit flexible on this one.
All right, that's a very reasonable budget, and we can work with that. So, is this your first home purchase?
No, actually I've owned a few homes before, and I'm just looking to add this one to my portfolio as a summer home.
Great, it sounds like you're experienced in the field and have an established portfolio. So, what kinds of expectations do you have for this home, Mike? What features are you looking for?
I was hoping to get a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, and I would love if I could have something close to the city center. And aside from that, as long as I have a large garage and a pretty decent sized driveway, I'll be pretty happy.
Noted, Mike. Those are all great specifications. Before I pass that information on to our agent to start looking, could I ask for your email, please?
Of course. My email is mike2025@gmail.com.
Perfect. And lastly, how long do you expect to be searching for a home, Mike?
I would like to be able to find something within the next month if you guys could do that, but I understand if things can be tough.
Well, we could definitely work around that timeline, and I'll make sure our agents start looking to make that happen for you. Is there anything else you would like to add or any questions for me before we get started?
I think we covered everything for now. I look forward to working with you, and thank you for your help.
Fantastic, Mike. Thanks so much for sharing all of this information. I'll get it ready to be passed on, and we'll get in touch soon. Have a great rest of your day.
So now that you guys watched through the demo and stuck around for this little intro, I'm pretty sure that you're interested in seeing how this thing works under the hood. So with all that said, let's dive right into this AI build, and I'll break everything down for you so you can understand exactly how this agent works. Alright, so let's dive into the system a little deeper so you guys can understand how this works. So in case I didn't mention it to you before, the system doesn't just answer your calls for you when you're not around. It also processes the information that callers share with you, and if they fall under the category of a lead, the system will actually analyze that information and give them a qualification score. And from there, you'll get a notification either through Slack or through SMS when a potential lead is ready to be followed up with. So the main platform we're going to be using for this system is Vapi. And on the back end of that, I have an automation that I built in Make.com that actually collects their information, processes it, and qualifies that lead. And once all of that's finished, it passes the information to a Google Sheet, which is going to act as our CRM. Now you can replace this with HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever it is that you prefer. And in a minute, I'll show you exactly how that automation works and how the data is stored in my Google Sheet. But for now, let's just take a look at how this is going to work in Vapi. So I have this model running off of OpenAI's GPT-4o, just because that tends to be the highest performing model at this point in time. And of course, you can always add a knowledge base here if you want to give the agent the capability of answering any questions that callers might come in with. For the purposes of this video, I didn't include one just because I wanted to mainly focus on the qualification process. Now, you can also experiment with your temperature and your max tokens, but I just have mine set to 0.5 and 250 here. So now let's break down down the prompt so that we can actually understand how this agent is following instructions. In case you're not familiar with how these prompts are usually set up, they're broken down into various sections that contain key bits of information that the agent will use to piece together the instructions that it follows for every call. So let's start off here with the role. And this is essentially the persona that the agent is going to be following, answering inbound calls and qualifying them as leads. Now, in order to do this, I've instructed it to ask a set of questions along with any additional follow-ups if necessary. And on the back end of that, I want to make sure that this also collects the caller's email address before the call ends so that we actually have another way to reach out to them. And of course, to address the caller by name when it's relevant to do so, and to respond concisely and helpfully to anything that they might ask. So the task for our next section is going to build off of that role. So what you see going on here is a 7-step process for how the agent is to conduct itself for every call. The first step is going to be to ask for the caller's full name and find out what it is that they actually want help with. And if that person happens to be a potential lead, the agent is going to go through a line of questioning that I have specified in order to gather information that is going to be used to qualify them later on. I've also included a step 4 here, which is to escalate the call to a human if anything comes up that's beyond the scope of the agent. And luckily, Vapi has a feature that allows us to do this, so we don't need to build an external automation to handle it. Now, number 5 here is actually where that make automation comes in, because once the call ends, it's going to trigger this automation in make, and all of the information that's been shared by the caller is going to be transferred through, processed, and finally the lead will be scored, and then your team will be notified. And my section for specifics sort of elaborates on that, and it also addresses a couple of extra things that could happen, such as if the caller says something the agent doesn't understand, it can politely ask them to repeat that. And also, if a question has already been answered, I've instructed the agent to not ask it again. So if the caller happens to mention that they're trying to buy their first home initially, the agent won't ask if this is their first home purchase, because it already knows that. Now, this example is going to be one of the most important parts of this prompt, because it's going to outline exactly how a call is supposed to progress. And now, if you actually take a look through this script, it follows the demo you guys saw pretty closely. And in this case, since my temperature is set to 0.5, there was a little bit of variation here when it comes to how closely the agent followed these instructions. So if you want your agent to follow your instructions more precisely, you're going to want to bring your temperature more close to 0. If you want to pause the video to see how things are set up here, you can feel free to do so. But essentially, this example is going to be the meat and potatoes of our prompt here. And once this has been taken care of, I'm going to finish up with a note section, which is just going to reiterate on some things that may have gotten lost within the prompt, or that I want to make sure the agent doesn't forget. And since this prompt wasn't actually that long, I didn't have to include that strong of a note section here. So if you guys actually want to learn how to add functions, how to explore this advanced tab, or how to perform an analysis of your calls, feel free to let me know down in the comments. But for now, I just wanted to have a surface level overview of the spot so you guys can kind of understand how this works. So now let me show you the make automation so you guys can see how this information is collected and how the leads are actually qualified. So here's the full automation here, and let me take you through it step by step. So first off here, we have a webhook which is going to be triggered once Vapi is finished with the call. So all of the information is going to be collected here and passed onto a ChatGPT module, which is just going to organize it into all of the different categories. And this is just going to make things easier to process down the line and easier to keep organized. Next up, we're going to actually enrich that data. And in this case, since we're receiving a transcript from Vapi, it's going to be removing any unnecessary details and boiling everything down to what's the most essential so that we can keep our CRM clean. Now this next module is actually where the data is going to be broken up so that we can actually move it on to our CRM, which in this case is just a Google Sheet. And at this point, all of the information is going to be passed into each of their corresponding columns. And as you can see, each of these columns here just contains the most essential information from the call I just had with the agent, and each of these columns has been processed to create a qualification score, which in this case was a 10. So let's go back to our automation. So the next step in this automation is to actually qualify the prospect. So all of the information that was passed into our CRM will be given to this GPT module. And this is where you specify exactly what makes a client qualified for your specific case. So if you guys want to see an actual example of a qualification prompt to insert into a module like this, be sure to let me know down in the comments. For now, I've just sorted things into a 1 to 10 scale, with 1 to 5 being low qualification and 6 to 10 being high qualification. So if GPT determines that your lead is not very qualified, or they fall on the 1 to 5 spectrum, your team will receive a notification on Slack to notify you that a new lead has entered your CRM, and then this webhook response will just complete the automation to allow you to know everything was executed properly. On the other hand, if your lead was a 6 to 10, then either you or someone on your team will directly receive an SMS to notify you of the exact moment when the qualification happened. And this is what allows you to get back to them so quickly after this whole qualification process has happened. And this is actually an important step because it doesn't just leave your clients hanging after they've engaged with your agent. The prospect is actually going to be able to get a response directly from you within a very short period of time afterwards. So this entire process is extremely streamlined if you have it set up properly. And then of course the automation ends here with a webhook response just to let you know everything was executed. So overall, this project is very useful when it comes to managing your inbound leads, and especially if you have a lot of responsibilities during the day, it can be hard to just be answering your phone all the time. If you have a lot going on during your day, or if you happen to get a lot of calls at night when you're off, this agent will handle all of that for you without you actually having to pick up your phone every single time it rings. And this of course eliminates the issue of prospects having to wait hours or even days for people to get back to them when they're actually trying to reach out to you to do business. And the use cases for this are nearly unlimited. This could be modified for nearly any industry, and this automation right here can become far more complex than the version that you see on the screen right now. So I hope you guys were able to get some value out of this and kind of get a better idea of how an agent like this could potentially work for you. And if you have any questions about this build or want to see anything more in depth than I was able to show you in this video, then be sure to let me know down in the comments. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.